Good day, check 1, 2, 3, gender and society class. We are now in module 3, gender and inequality. In this module, we are going to cover male-female differences, gender in global perspectives, patriarchy and sexism. Gender as a concept is the meaning that a culture attaches to being female or male. Female or male as biological concepts. Gender is a dimension of social organizations of think of a society, and that gender in that society shapes how we interact with others, whether we interact in such a conservative manner or we interact in such liberated manner. Gender shapes what we think about ourselves. Do we think of ourselves as less or more compared to others? As better, as good, as best compared to others? Or we think of ourselves as equal to others? Gender involves hierarchy. It ranks men and women differently in terms of power, wealth, and other resources. So, because of gender, there are those who we perceive or look at as more powerful, and there are those who are powerless. And when it comes to wealth, there are those who are rich, there are those who are poor, and many others. Now let's have now the male and female differences. There's the tendency to think of social differences in biological terms. In 1848, for example, women were denied to vote, assumed by people that women did not have enough intelligence or interest in politics. These attitudes had nothing to do with biology. This reflected the culture of that time and place. Okay, let's now go to gender in the global perspectives. There is the comparison of society's cultural foundation to see differences in masculine feminine spectrum. So we are going to have three studies here. First is the Israel's kibbutzim, then New Guinea's three groups by Margaret Mead, and 200 pre-industrial societies by Murdock. Now the Israel's kibbutzim, it's actually kibbutz in singular form. The collective settlements where gender equality is one of its stated goals. Men and women in this particular society, in these settlements, share in both work and decision making. Not one sex is above the other. They share the same work and decisions. However, in recent decades, kibbutzim have become less collective and thus less distinctive organizations. But through much of their history, both sexes shared most everyday jobs. For example, the men joined women in taking care of children, while the women joined men in repairing buildings and providing armed security. Both the men and the women made everyday decisions for the group. The younger people in the society, the girls and the boys, were raised in the same way. In many cases, young children were raised together in dormitories, away from parents. Now, the older ones, the adults in the society, women and men in the kibbutzim have achieved remarkable, although not complete, social equality. In here, we can say that cultures define what is feminine and what is masculine. This actually supports the previous discussion we had in Module 2 on gender construction. What about the New Guinea's three groups as studied by the anthropologist Margaret Mead? Okay, she observed each of these people in their respective societies. These are the Arapesh in the mountainous area, the Mundugumor in the south, and the Tchambuli in the west. Now, the Arapesh people, Margaret Mead observed that men and women had remarkably similar attitudes and behavior. They were both cooperative and sensitive to others. These characteristics actually, we label this in our culture as feminine characteristics. But that feminine characteristics are shared by both men and women. Now, the Mundugumor people, men and women engage in head hunting and cannibalism. Both were typically selfish and aggressive. Okay, they are so different from the Arapish people, but what's common among them is both men and women share the same characteristics in this group of people. We label this in our culture as masculine. Now, the third group of people, the Chambuli people, women were dominant and rational. See the difference now? And it's just the exact opposite of what the popular culture is telling us. Men here in the Chambuli people were submissive, emotional, and nurturing toward children. It's as if there is a reverse of the sexes. Okay? So there is the observation by Mead that the women and the men were of the opposite, not the same as the Arapish and the Mundugumor people. In conclusion to this study, society defines what were masculine and what were feminine. Again, cementing the gender construction concept. Now, the third study by George Murdock, 200 pre-industrial societies. It is actually a review of research in these societies on which tasks are feminine and which are masculine. So Murdoch found out that with pre-industrial society's simple technology, the assignment of roles reflects men's and women's physical characteristics. So you see, there were no machines yet, the high-tech machines. So there is that heavy reliance on physical prowess. Okay. For men's greater size and strength, so they hunt and protect the group. As women bear children, so they do most of the work in the home. So you can see the sort of division of labor. In addition, women did the farming in about the same number of societies as men. Mostly, the men and women shared farming. So in conclusion to this study by Murdoch, gender is too variable across cultures to be a simple expression of biology. What it means to be female and male is mostly a creation of society. Now let's now go to the second part, patriarchy, third part, patriarchy and sexism. Patriarchy is a form of social organization in which males dominate females. Matriarchy is a form of social organization in which females dominate males. So another concept in this portion is sexism, the belief that one sex is innately superior to the other. It's like you are born with it. You are born to dominate, something like that. Well, a case of matriarchy. Why is this a case of matriarchy? Because the pattern in almost everywhere in the world is patriarchy. You just look around and you'll see that in many societies, it's the always the male who dominates in many aspects of society, politics, economy, education, religion. But the Muso, a very small society in China's Yunnan province, where women control most property, select their sexual partners, and make most decisions about everyday life. This particular area seems to be very, very different from the rest of the world. It's so unique. Now, sexism, this concept is the one that justifies patriarchy. And what is this? It's not just a matter of individual attitudes. It is built into the institutions of society. And what does that mean? There is the so-called institutional sexism. So it's already built in. Wherein it's throughout the economy. Wherein women concentrated in low-paying jobs. If you are going to look at the differences of wages or salaries, so there is really a difference in the giving of wage to a male and to a female. Also, the legal system has long excused violence against women, especially on the part of boyfriends, husbands, and fathers. You just look at the legal documents and you'll see that there is perpetuation of such things as abuse. Okay, women's social standing. Now, the highest amongst the world in the world, okay, in terms of women's social standing are found in these countries. Three countries in Europe, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, while the lowest are mostly in Africa, Niger, Democratic Republic of Congo, Yemen. So there is really that ranking system of the world's 195 nations. According to the United Nations, the United States ranks 44th in terms of gender equality. So see that is United States, and there is still much of gender inequality there. So if you look at this particular map, it's a women's social standing map. Okay, so what would you like to look at? You want to see where are we? Where's Philippines? Do you see this? Women's social standing high. This is the color for above average, and then average, below average, low, and no data. So where is the high? Including is Australia here, and many Canada, and parts of Europe, which we already have mentioned. And here is also Japan. It is above average, these colors. So we're average. Oh, so Philippines then is that color of average.